Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Leland Vittert. The world is starting to shut down again, all based on an exploding number of COVID cases. But with 60% of American adults vaccinated, there are serious questions. If case count is what we really should be worried about as we come on the air tonight. Take a look at the cover of the Sun newspaper in London. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, in case you're missing the headline writer's pun. A lockdown is coming to the United Kingdom. Over the history of the pandemic, UK shutdowns and mandates have been about 2 weeks ahead of those here in the United States. New York today recorded the most number of COVID cases. They are quite literally exploding. The Rockettes canceled their Christmas shows. NFL postponed some games amid team outbreaks. And Prince George's County, Maryland public schools announced that they are back to virtual learning until January 18th. It does sound scary. Maybe it is, or maybe it's a wild overreaction to something no less deadly than a common cold, as long as you are vaccinated. South Africa ran the alarm bells over Omicron during Thanksgiving week. Bloomberg now reports only 1.7% of identified COVID-19 cases were admitted to hospital in the second week of infections in the fourth wave, the Omicron wave. That's compared with 19% in the same week of the third Delta-driven wave. That's according to South African Health Minister Joe Fala at a press conference the past couple of days. This is a chart from the South African National Institute for Communicable Diseases. It shows the Omicron spike on the far right in blue. So you see the blue case counts spike up, but hospitalizations on the yellow line are far, far less than they were during the previous waves. Which begs the question, should we upend life and stop normal activities because of cases that in vaccinated individuals appear to cause something akin to the cold? Dr. Rajiv Fernando, subcontractor for FEMA, works on the emergency COVID missions across the country and is in New York helping with their surge. Doc, good to see you. What have you seen so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Leland. And of course, New York City was the epicenter of the outbreak back in 2020, and it certainly feels that way right now, back to the epicenter of the COVID surge in America. What happens over here, Leland, is whatever happens in New York tells us what's going to happen around the country. So that's why New York City is so important to follow with the Omicron strain.
Yeah, have you met yet a single healthy person admitted to the hospital with Omicron, healthy vaccinated person with Omicron?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, so let's break this down. You mentioned Delta, D for Delta, D for death. With the new Omicron strain, it tends to be a milder illness, but super infectious. Now, what we do know right now is the doubling rate of the Omicron variant. New York City cases have doubled in the last 72 hours. So although it's much more infectious and less deadly, eventually its infectiousness will reach a person who's immune compromised, and those patients will get admitted. It's also important to know with South Africa.
I hate to interrupt you, but you said eventually the immune compromised will get admitted. Do we know of a single otherwise healthy person, not immune compromised, who was vaccinated, who's in the ICU with Omicron?
Absolutely not. It's still very early. We have to follow very closely. But right now, this is a surge upon a surge. So the number of hospitalizations have actually increased by 22%. So the Delta variant is still dominating in unvaccinated people. So the Delta variant is dominating the country. Across the country, about 7 to 8% of cases are Omicron, but 92% of cases are still the Delta variant. So getting boosted will prevent further disease for the Delta variant and Omicron. So very important to get boosted at this point.
Right. In cases where you have people who are otherwise healthy and vaccinated and boosted, so far I haven't seen anybody hospitalized, so far I haven't seen anybody in the ICU. It begs the question, for people who are otherwise healthy and not immune compromised, have the vaccine, is worrying about case counts the right metric?
Well, the problem with the Omicron strain is it's much more infectious. You are going to feel horrible. And even, I'm going to tell you something up front, even if you get boosted, for the Omicron strain, it only gives you 70% protection. So that's really important to know. And I want the American people to understand that. So that's how deadly and infectious this is. So that's why it's really important to get boosted.
70% protective against what?
To prevent breakthrough infections, mild to moderate.
Okay, so 70% to protect breakthrough, but still almost 100% in healthy people to prevent death or serious illness.
Absolutely. Getting vaccinated is a sure shot to actually avoid severe disease, ICU, and death.
So if
getting vaccinated.
If that's true, and we all get colds this time of year, we all get the flu this time of year. It happened since time began. You always have some uncle at Thanksgiving who's hacking up a lung. If you're vaccinated and boosted, and that's a surefire way to prevent serious illness or death, why do you care if you get Omicron?
Well, you don't want to get sick at all. Remember,
nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to get sick, but nobody wants to go back down to lockdowns and wear masks at Christmas with just you and your parents.
Yeah, I don't advocate for any sort of lockdown at all at this point. I still advise travel with simple precautions. Going to holiday parties. Some of the things I suggest is, you can get a PCR test for peace of mind. Whoever is attending. Just before going to the Christmas parties to get a PCR test. I don't advocate for certainly not a lockdown at all. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should stay the course. Travel should stay the same with, stringent precautions. I don't advocate for anything. Keep your travel plans, keep your Christmas parties. A couple of things you have to think out of the box. Just like we get a PCR test before we fly, a COVID test before we fly, I think the same thing should be advocated for at Christmas parties. So it's peace of mind. Everybody knows you're negative. And the basic precautions. I'm absolutely against any sort of lockdown at this point in this country.
I just want to try to understand what we're to the average person. So if me and my family are getting together and we're all healthy and we're all boosted, we get a PC. Nobody really cares whether they get the Omicron cold. Why do we bother with PCR tests?
Yeah, it's just a suggestion. And the thing is, Omicron it's still very new. It's still very nascent. We're still learning about it. Like I said, this data from South Africa is very early. So we just don't know enough about it. In the next few months, as more data evolves, we'll be able to understand about the real situation with Omicron. Now, for example, studies are from the UK. We just don't have enough studies in the US. So it's still a long way. And to say right now, it's still very early. But right now, really, nobody wants to get even mild to moderate illness, If people are stuck at home, they're ill. Like I said, it prevents death for sure. But nobody wants to get sick.
Yeah, nobody wants to get
really
sick. It's just sort of the trade-off. And you sort of talked about this, right? The trade-off of the risks of not going to holiday parties and not having fun and not being with your family versus, the risk of, having a cold or being sick for a couple of days. So as you point out, there's ways to prevent that. In terms of travel, realistically, is being on an airplane all that dangerous? Because we've had a lot of discussion over that over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'll be upfront with you. First of all, you should be wearing your mask on an airplane. Definitely. There are going to be times you're taking off your mask to eat. But I'll tell you something up front. So remember, when you're on an airplane, the air is recirculated, and there's an exchange of air. So this filters like close to 99% of the viral particles, which is fantastic. But remember, you're still eating, you're still taking off your mask for other reasons. So
you think about that.
That's why I still recommend travel with stringent precautions, and chances of transmission during an airplane are significantly lower.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, I got to tell you, hats off to you for heading up to New York to answer the bell in the middle of another wave right ahead of the holidays. I know you'd a lot rather be with friends and family, and instead you're answering the call. Says a lot. We appreciate you taking some time to be with us, all right?
Thank you. It's an honor to serve our country. Thank you again for having me, Leland.
Thank you.
I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan. Our work begins with getting COVID under control.
That was President Biden during the campaign and then during his victory speech. President Biden made ending COVID a centerpiece of his campaign. Now more people have died with COVID under his watch than President Trump's. Niall Standage, White House columnist for The Hill, our sister company, joining us now. Boy, Niall, it seems as though the White House really realizes they're in a no-win situation here.
Yeah, I think they are. And I was listening to your previous interview very closely because it is a complicated situation, and complicated situations tend to be not great in politics or for politicians. The White House is trying to thread this needle, saying, take all these precautions. If you're unvaccinated, this could be catastrophic. If you're vaccinated, it's kind of okay, so let's not worry about it. And it's just a very, very mixed message, and I think that is in itself a political problem.
Yeah, it seems very mixed and kind of ill thought out along the way. And this would, then candidate Biden didn't have to run on the concept of being the adult in the room who was going to get COVID under control, but he did. And now you look at his approval numbers. This is for the first time that Biden's approval ratings on coronavirus are underwater. Only 46% approve, 48% disapprove. In fairness, though, presidents don't get to decide necessarily what their presidency will be defined by. Is there any discussion in the White House about how to unown COVID, if you will?
I don't think so. I think they are hoping that the situation does improve, that Omicron is not as grave as it at first appeared, and that maybe by January, February, March, we're in a more stable situation. There are several problems with that strategy, of course, not least the fact that the population at large is just so tired of all of this. And by the time you get to February, March, you're not that far away from the midterm elections. And if something like COVID, which has been a strong point for President Biden, is no longer a strong point, that's a problem for the Democrats.
What I'm interested in, sort of the political messaging they're going through of an exercise. It would be very easy for the White House right now to say, look, this is a success story. Omicron is not deadly. It's like a common cold. Get vaccinated. Vaccines and boosters are free. See, I've solved it. You're just going to get a cold. Go forth and conquer. Have a great Christmas. Yet they don't. And I'm wondering if they see a political value in continuing to be seen as the COVID czar presidency.
I think there's a couple of things there, Leland. I think in general, politicians prefer to err on the side of caution for fear that they will say something that in retrospect starts to look reckless. But I also think that there is an additional problem with the White House trying to claim on one hand that this is really a deadly situation, and on the other saying it's a deadly situation that we are dealing with really well. That juxtaposition is just hard to make work politically.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the only politician who did not live by the adage in the first part of your answer was Donald Trump, the former resident of the White House. You got to kind of juxtapose the two Biden sound bites from October 2020 when he was running and then today. We'll play them back to back.
Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. It's here now, and it's spreading, and it's going to increase. For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm.
Things that don't age well.
Right. And the idea, I think, is really, are you responsible for everything that happens under your watch? Biden's argument, I think, is that then President Trump was too cavalier about this and actually fell down on the job, whereas Biden, in his view, has done what he can and has been thwarted by circumstances like the new variants.
Yeah.
That's an argument that can be made. It's I don't know how persuasive it is to independent voters.
Yeah, I think you point out, well, it's very persuasive, at least my own personal focus group, Democrats that I talk to, still think he's doing a good job. He's trusting science. It's the independent voters who are fed up. And I'm real quick, this breaking news near D.C., Prince George's County, one of the bedroom communities for D.C., now going to all virtual learning. You're starting to wonder whether parents are going to revolt. And these were the same soccer moms who went from Trump to Biden in 2020.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that I have my own focus group on, as you term it. I have no school-age children myself, but people who do, I know this has been an enormous disruption. The whole issue of education has been really powerful during this controversy. And I think, you know, there'll be a lot of dissatisfaction with more disruption to come.
Yeah, we certainly saw that in the Virginia race, and now we see the CDC rapidly changing their tune. Hey, Niall, it was always good talking to you. If we don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Same to you and to your audience.
Yeah, this was great. The Omicron variant is hitting pro sports hard. Players have been sidelined, games postponed, vaccination rates are high. So what's going on in pro sports in America? Plus, coming up, critics say the Sackler family should be held responsible for fueling America's opioid epidemic. Now, after a controversial legal ruling, justice might finally be near. That's a clip from the new series Dope Sick on Hulu. It looks at America's addiction to opioids and who is partly responsible for it. The opioid epidemic has claimed nearly 500,000 lives in the United States over the past decade. Now the family accused of fueling America's addiction, the Sackler family, will be facing the families who are suffering as a result. A judge has overturned an earlier $4.5 billion settlement, which would have shielded the Sacklers from future lawsuits. Joining us now, Keith Humphreys, professor of psychiatry, behavioral sciences at Stanford University, former drug policy advisor to two presidential administrations back during the George W. Bush years and Obama years. Professor, it's good to see you. Focusing on the Sacklers, based on what you saw from them and how they acted during your years at the White House, are they deserving of being able to wash their hands with this for a settlement and walk away with billions?
Absolutely not. In fact, one of the astonishing things about all of this is that we are debating as a country whether they should walk away with $5 billion or $10 billion or $15 billion, and not debating what we should be talking about, which is why are they not in prison?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. If the Sacklers had trafficked as much illegal opioids as they did legal opioids, what would have happened to them?
They would have spent the rest of their lives in jail. You know, if you sell $36,000 of heroin, you would face a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years. They sold $36 billion of OxyContin, and none of them spent even one night in jail. And I think a lot of Americans understandably have a very hard time understanding how that could be true.
Is there, and I watched Dope Sick, and it's a fascinating 7-episode series, obviously that just scratches the surface as all these documentaries do, but it seems as though there's a legitimate use for opioids as painkillers. Fair. What is the line that the Sacklers crossed?
So first, if you're absolutely right, they are essential to the practice of medicine, and we absolutely need to have them. What the Sacklers did was they were able to persuade the FDA, which does not come out looking very good in this, that they should be able to market these with the false claim that they were less addictive than other opioids, and that then they sent their huge sales force out to tell doctors, you know, you can just keep prescribing these. There's no risk. Don't worry about addiction. If they start to top out and they don't work anymore for pain, just up the dose. And a lot of doctors who are poorly trained in pain and addiction both believe that. And that's how they were the most responsible company for upping opioid prescribing in the U.S. by 400% from the mid-90s to 2010. Their company was clearly not the only one, but It was the aggressive, and they were the most successful at thwarting the institutions that are supposed to protect us.
It would not surprise you that Richard Sackler denies that Purdue Pharma caused any addiction or downplayed addiction. This is from his deposition for Kentucky's lawsuit. Take a listen.
Do you believe Purdue's conduct in marketing and promoting OxyContin in Kentucky caused any of the prescription drug addiction problems now plaguing the Commonwealth?
I don't believe so.
Sitting here today, after all you've come to learn as witness, do you believe that Purdue's conduct in Kentucky has led to an excessive or unnecessary amount of opioids being located throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
I don't believe so.
So that was in 2015. He's a man of few words, understandably. Back during your time in the Bush administration, this was really before the world understood all this and it was still a debate. And obviously, Purdue Pharma was very involved in lobbying the FDA and talking to the White House and the DEA. Was he any more forthcoming when he met with you and your colleagues?
Well, I say I've never had the displeasure of meeting Richard Sackler, and I'm rather feel fortunate in that respect. I mean, if we're looking for shame or contrition, it's clearly not going to come from him. And that has been the view of the whole family. I mean, they've been very explicit that they accept no responsibility for anything that's happened, even though the investigation has shown they were intimately involved with running the company. They knew about the level of addiction and they did not do anything about it. And it's also worth noting they've already been convicted in federal court of fraud. There was an enormous settlement against them about 2007. So it's not in dispute that they were involved, but at least in their personal appearances, they continue to deny all this as if they didn't know that this was happening and that as if they didn't have an active part in it, which they certainly did.
U.S. overdoses 1999 to 2019. About 850,000, 500,000 involved in opioid. And then you put up the map of where this happened. And still, especially as it relates to opioids, it's in rural Appalachia. It's through Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, down through Tennessee and part of the southern part of the United States, especially rural parts. I guess you have to think about this from a public policy standpoint. You also have to think about this in terms of what can be done next. There's no idea, there's no thought to your mind that these folks are going to spend a night in jail. I haven't heard that so far. Have you seen any willingness on the part of a number of state attorney generals to actually bankrupt the family rather than just let them walk away with a number of billions?
That is the goal that they should have, but a lot of them are in a situation, and I appreciate this, and I should emphasize, I am from West Virginia. I know how terrible this is. I also know how strapped for resources a lot of them feel, and there are some of them in good faith who feel like, look, this is the most we can get out of these folks is some money to undo a small part of the damage that they did, and so they don't want to go for a longer case. But, I'm hopeful that someone will stand up and, push a criminal case. And it's very intimidating. You've got billions of dollars and, the best lawyers and lobbyists money can buy on the other side. But, what they did resulted in more deaths in this country, than World War II. They've destroyed, I speak for people in West Virginia when I say, they destroyed our communities, they killed our children, and why is it that they are walking away as billionaires? That's not right.
Well, they're probably walking away as billionaires because they started as billionaires when they came to the party. Professor Humphreys, it was good to see you, sir. We really appreciate it. What a tour de force and some great work on the behalf of your home state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The back and forth over Alec Baldwin's phone is carrying over into today. Police in Santa Fe, New Mexico, have issued a warrant for Baldwin's phone after he refused to hand it over in connection with the Rust movie shooting investigation. Police asked Baldwin for his phone, but through a lawyer, he told them to get a warrant. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed and a director was hurt. Authorities have been scrutinizing the actions of Baldwin, who fired the gun. Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger when the gun went off. Police say they want to look into his emails with producers. Julie Redelman, criminal defense lawyer, joins us now. Julie, I don't think there's a criminal defense lawyer in the world who would have voluntarily turned over a phone, is there?
None that I would trust to be my attorney. No, absolutely not.
At the same time, I guess you would think that someone couldn't be stupid enough to either text or email after they had just shot and killed a woman, as Alec Baldwin did. We saw pictures from right after the incident of him on his phone. Presumably, is this to look at what happened before the shooting or after the shooting?
So it sounds like look, they're covering their bases, no stones unturned. And it sounds like they want to look back at all the emails, texts, phone calls involving from the start of Rust, which, by the way, goes back quite a while. Now, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to find from this, because remember, this is a criminal investigation. This is not a civil investigation right now in terms of police involvement. But look, there's an argument to be made that they think that there's some possibility of some evidence that would indicate indicate some criminal negligence on the part of Alec Baldwin or anyone else involved, and they're going to do that. And Alec Baldwin, people are upset that he didn't automatically hand over his phone. No one would have let him do that. They would have had access to everything, and at least with a search warrant, it limits what they're allowed to look at and what they're not allowed to look at, and has a judge basically looking over it.
To that point, though, if I hand you my phone right now, it's pretty useless because you don't have the passcode. You can get the emails from Google, but you can't get the text messages without the code. He invokes his Fifth Amendment right. We're never going to see those, are we?
Well, I hate to get into technicalities, but it does depend on what type of phone it is. There are certain phones, very few that you can't get into, but most phones you can get into. I think we all think you can't, but I never had trouble. And, in terms of when I was a prosecutor, the feds don't have trouble. And so they're usually pretty successful in getting into the phones. Once they have a warrant and he continues kind of down that road, then people are going to start to question, well, now what is he hiding if he's not willing, to allow them to see that?
Fair enough. What do you make of the fact that no one has yet been charged? There's a woman who's dead. Bullets don't jump off the table and get into guns. I can take a loaded weapon here and put it on the table, and it's not going to go off for a very long period of time. How much special treatment is he getting?
So I don't know that he's getting special treatment. And I say that because, from the start, I think that everyone agreed it was an accident. And the question becomes when an accident happens.
Right. But there's a woman right now in Minnesota, a police officer who's on trial for manslaughter, and that was clearly an accident.
There is a difference, and the difference is A, she was a police officer, B, she was supposed to grab for a taser, and instead she grabbed for a gun. This is a scenario, if you accept it to be true, that Alec Baldwin had absolutely no idea and no reason to know that there were live bullets. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a possibility of negligence, and that doesn't mean there's not an even further possibility of criminal negligence if there's something about the way that Rust was run in terms of negligence, irresponsibility, not paying attention to who the person was that was going to be controlling, the dummies and all that stuff, that may come back to him. But I think criminal negligence with regards to Alec Baldwin is elite.
Real quick, what do we watch for that he might get either indicted or arrested?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
What do we watch for that would indicate he's either going to get indicted or arrested?
Some people think because they're going to his phone that they're headed in that direction. I don't think that at all. I think they're covering all their bases. I'll be honest, I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think you're going to see tons and tons and tons of civil litigation regarding Alec Baldwin and everyone surrounding this case. But I don't think you'll ever see a criminal courtroom in this case.
Hey, Julie, we really appreciate you being with us. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Good to see you. Golf world united in its happiness. Not about the car accident, but the fact that Tiger is back, kind of. He teed off today in public for the first time since he barely escaped death in a car accident. We'll tell you who he's playing with, who stole the show, and the White House might be taking new steps to prevent Russia from invading Ukraine. Think it's going to actually work? Does this scare the Russians? We'll talk about it when we come back. The U.S. government might finally be speaking in a language President Putin understands. Our Kelly Meyer reports from Washington. There is new bipartisan agreement on sanctions against one of President Putin's pet projects. The news comes just as the Russians hope to start pumping gas through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You might have heard of the Nord Stream 2. It brings Russian natural gas from St. Petersburg to Western Europe and provides hard currency to Putin and his oligarch buddies. If gas starts flowing through Nord Stream 2, it gives Putin a lot more flexibility when it comes to his other project, invading Ukraine. Ukraine is all the way on the far bottom right of the screen. Right now, Russia sends its gas to Europe through a pipeline in Ukraine. So invade Ukraine, and the Ukrainians could blow up the pipeline, which would be slightly problematic for Putin. So Nord Stream 2 gives him a lot more flexibility. The Biden administration threatened an attack on Ukraine. The Putin might mean cutting off the pipeline with sanctions. President Trump, you might remember, had shut down Nord Stream 2, but Mr. Biden gave it the green light. So far, the White House has gotten precious little from the Russians in return. Peter Brooks, senior research fellow for the Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy, joins us. Now, good to see you. Is these sanctions enough to dissuade Putin's adventures in Ukraine?
We don't know. It's only the threat of sanctions. But the fact is that it looks like public opinion and governmental opinion in Germany may support this if Russia moves against Ukraine. Remember, there's two partners here. There's Russia, who's building the pipeline. Then, of course, the receiving country is Germany. And the Germans have put kind of I would say, a political hold on this since about mid-November, when Russia started to move troops towards Ukraine. And they've not approved a bunch of administrative regulations that are required to start the operation of this pipeline. So I think there's a chance that this is something that could go forward if the Russians move against Ukraine in any number of sort of matters.
So we're looking at video from the Ukraine border. The Ukrainian troops were there. The smartest Putin watchers I know say that the clock essentially starts ticking now for a possible invasion. The ground has started to freeze in eastern Ukraine, combined with the fact that America is getting ready for Christmas and New Year's. So this is when Putin likes to do things. That said, does threatening to shut down Nord Stream 2, does threatening this pipeline, is that enough of a threat to mean something to Moscow?
It does. It means a lot. First of all, I would say, Leland, that look, this war is a political decision. It's not necessarily just about frozen ground.
Well, you say, I didn't Clausewitz say that too?
Not paying attention on the holidays. It's a political decision. Yeah. So I don't necessarily believe it's going to happen over the holidays. But you make a good point. This is a significant thing. 40%. EU gets 40% of its natural gas from Russia, about 30% of its crude oil. So the concern about Nord Stream from the beginning was that it would give Russia a significant amount of leverage over Europe because they would be dependent upon Russian supplies. And it would also have an effect on transatlantic security and transatlantic relations. And the Biden administration gave in on this mistakenly, in my view, because he wanted to reset relations with Germany. So look, this is something Putin has to think about. I mean, I think it was the late Senator John McCain who said, Russia is a country, as a gas station masquerading as a country. I mean, its major economic production is in the energy field. And certainly Europe is one of its biggest customers. So yes, Putin would have to think about this. But I don't think you have to remember what he wants. He wants, guarantees that Ukraine will never join NATO, that the United States military will stop its cooperation with Ukraine.
I hate to interrupt you, but it seems as though every time you give Putin something, he just wants more. It's like you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass.
It's a moral hazard. You give into bad behavior, you get more bad behavior, right?
Yeah, or you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk. Mr. Brooks, good to see you. We appreciate it. Great Christmas tie. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Thank you. Same to you. Merry Christmas.
COVID is once again surging in professional sports leagues. So should safety protocols shut leagues down or let the games go on? Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.